when I turned around, he was like, oh, I'm already turned on. And he's looking at himself in the mirror like a psychopath.
Oh, gosh.
I'm already turned on. I have a boner. And then I was like getting more irritated, scared. And I'm like, you need to get out like now, you know. There was someone making noise again. So he refused, he waited. And finally, like the third time when I turned around and like tried to escort him out, he told his pants were down.
Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a report of a young woman who says that she wasn't just forced to check into a federal quarantine hotel, but that in doing so, it left her helpless and that she ended up being sexually assaulted. This is beyond unacceptable, so please watch the report of this brave woman, whom I'll call Sarah, in full, and don't forget to share it to raise awareness about just how dangerous these COVID jails can be. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and if you're in Canada, you've no doubt heard about the despicable quarantine hotels that the federal government has sicked upon its own people simply for trying to return back to Canada. The title quarantine hotel is a little bit misleading, actually. It almost makes it sound like a peaceful getaway for some deathly ill people who have nowhere else to go. But in reality, as you can see at many of our investigative reports at rebelnews.com, these are often undisclosed locations where even healthy and asymptomatic people are forced to check in and have to wait to be told when they can check out. That's why we call them COVID jails here. But even that term, honestly, it's a little bit too nice. After all, prisoners in Canada can let their family know where they are. They're not forced to pay $666 a day to stay in prison, and they definitely are fed food and water in a timely fashion, unlike these people who claim that they had to wait 2 days to have food.
Don't say that. Like last 2 days, you eat 3 times a week. That's it.
It is possible to live without food.
Everybody will get refunds, okay? Everybody will get refunds. Get this. There's nothing we can accomplish by what's going on right now.
We want receipt all the people right now. Give us a proof that you will have our money. You will?
I will.
Yes, you will.
I will, absolutely.
To all of us.
But I can't accomplish anything by what's going on right now. I can't accomplish.
But lack of food and water bottles isn't anything compared to what Sarah described to me in this interview. After traveling to the US to visit her boyfriend, Sarah tried to return home, only to be told that the negative COVID-19 test she received was not recognized by her country, and so her only choice was to go to a COVID jail. Now, Sarah told me that while she was being unwillingly detained, the lock to her door was removed and she was sexually assaulted by another detainee. An Ontario man named Robert Shikori has since been charged in the alleged assault. Now, we simply could not hear Sarah's story and not offer help for her. So that is where you come in. If you'd like to join us in offering Sarah a top-notch lawyer to take on what happened to her at no cost to her, then please go to nocovidjails.com. We simply cannot let places run that become more dangerous than the virus. Due to a publication ban, not by Sarah's request, we have to conceal her identity, and so her name is not really Sarah, and you won't be seeing her face. Take a look at what she had to say.
I came back. I did the protocol as they asked. Government workers informed me after spending over an hour and something on the phone that the 15-minute antigen test was enough to come into Canada, which I did. If not, I would have paid the extra $20 for the PCR test.
It's $20 extra?
I think it's 25, but US. But regardless, I mean, I would have paid. The money was not the problem, right?
Right.
And so as soon as I got here, they escorted me downstairs from the border. Someone escorted me, just me. I was by myself, no one else. Escorted me downstairs to this lady, which gave me 3 options. Either I go back to the United States, which was a pretty sarcastic answer. I call back the clinic to make sure they didn't do the PCR test and marked it down. Or I have to do the test here and they will bring me to an undisclosed location till I get my results.
What was going through your mind when you were told that you were in fact going to have to go to that undisclosed location?
I called my mom. I panicked a bit. I didn't know what to do. She wasn't giving me my passport back. My mom was not outside waiting for me hours, and she didn't understand why she can't know where I'm going. I just felt like I felt kidnapped. I don't know. I had like against my own will. Like I had no choice. I had to give in. There was no. I didn't know that I was possibly, if looking at videos online, that I was able to just walk out. I didn't. Like I had no choice.
Yeah, well, we're not prepared for this at all. I mean, Canadians should be able to just go home. Now, what type of setup, looks like you have a nice bed behind you, but what type of setup do you have at home to be able to quarantine safely?
Yeah, well, I stay away from my family if I'm around them. I do have a mask. Anything I touch or use, we use different bathrooms. I disinfect everything regardless, like door handles, whatnot. I usually stay in my basement, which is a big space to myself. If I need to come up to my room, which I am now, I stay here for my school and whatnot. I don't really interact with them much.
So you have a space that you could have come home to and
Yes, I made
safely
that
quarantine.
clear. Yes.
Yeah.
There's no one over 65 in my house, so I was allowed to come home to quarantine.
So they take you in a shuttle of some sorts, or how did they transport you to the hotel?
They put me in a public taxi
Okay.
that was not coronavirus proof whatsoever. It was a saran wrap with a piece of beige tape holding it around. Nothing looked disinfected, nothing smelled disinfected. Just a regular public taxi, which I haven't taken. The only public, let's say, transportation what I took, it was a plane, which I decided. So I was put in it was like the movie Taken. You just put me in a taxi, kidnap me, and bring me somewhere.
Wow. And so did you have to pay for that taxi, or?
No, they paid. Everything was on their own expense. But regardless, like I said, it was not about the money or whatnot. My mom,
Right.
if I wanted to come home, like they would have helped me pay for something,
Of course.
That was not about.
Well, that's interesting if it's true that it's just a normal taxi is picking up these people who are so, treated like they're so dangerous to the country that they have to go to these quarantine facilities, and then they're ending up in a public taxi. So that's quite remarkable. Now, why don't you tell us what happened when things got even more scarier for you? And you're saying somebody entered your room.
Yeah, that was the following day. I had opened my door. I did not walk out of my door. I opened my door to peek to get some attention for the bottle of water that I had asked for since yesterday, and then like a couple of hours before the situation, the incident. And there was no one there except this guy across me waiting outside his door as well. Like he was at the door as well. Just looked like a normal guy my age, just start talking about coronavirus. I said, were you here against your own will? Where do you come from? Like, are you positive? Did you test? Things like that. And that's when he kind of switched the conversation to like, oh, it sucks. Like, let's keep each other company. Come into my room. And then obviously I refused. At first it wasn't like so serious. I was like, haha, I have a boyfriend. Like, we can't do that anyways, like
Yeah.
this, that. And then I think the conversation just continued for like a little bit. I tried to change the subject. And he kind of just like let go of his door, which closes automatically, right? And it takes him like 2 steps to get into my room.
Oh, wow.
So he kind of just like, my door was already open, right? It was like leaning on me kind of thing. So he kind of just like pushed it. I moved a little bit out of the way, and he just walked into my room. The door automatically closed behind him. I did not say, hey, enter my room and close the door. No, it's a hotel door. It closes once it's pushed, and I moved. So he made himself at home, then just started like touching me, asking me, like cornering me in the bathroom, had pulled out a condom, had asked me to sleep with him many times, and pretty much begging me, telling me he hasn't had sexual intercourse in a really long time, which that does not, anyways, I don't know. Finally, I like kind of like moved him to get out of the bathroom. And I kept repeating myself, you need to get out. And that's when I started videotaping because he was not getting out and I was scared and I didn't know what to do. So I started videotaping him secretly. So you only kind of get the bottom view, but you hear everything. He kept telling me like, oh, yeah, come on, like just like trying to push me into all this and like doesn't want to leave my room.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of like escorted him to the front and he wasn't leaving. He was behind me and he's like, I'll leave like if you make sure there's no security for me to get in trouble, right? So I said, I'll do as you ask, you know what I'm saying? I open the door, I look, whatever, we hear some noise. So I waited 2 seconds. And then when I turned around, he was like, oh, I'm already turned on. And he's looking at himself in the mirror like a psychopath. I'm already turned on. I have a boner. And then I was like getting more irritated, scared. And I'm like, you need to get out like now, you know. There was someone making noise again. So he refused, he waited. And finally, like the third time when I turned around and like tried to escort him out, he told his pants were down. His pants were down to like around his knee area, and he was like holding his genitals, touching him. So I don't know what he was doing. And that's when I kind of like said I was gonna scream for help if he has like 2 seconds to leave right now. That's when everything went downhill. Closed the door, called my boyfriend, called my mom. Everyone was freaking out. Called security. My boyfriend had called the cops. Security took them forever to come, and when they did, all they had to offer me was that bottle of water that I had begged for 2 days, and told me to lock my door and we'll be back, which never really came back till all the cops showed up, and the cops took a while too, which they apologized. They all got there. It was like 8 cops. I don't know how many ambulances. They called sergeants. There was like just all kinds of people there, and yeah, that's.
Wow, that sounds absolutely terrifying. I mean, what you're describing is, in my opinion, a victimization from the government that left you vulnerable to another victimization. Now, when you talk about how long it took to respond, roughly in minutes, how long are we talking about that it took to respond to your cry for help?
Security wise, I think it was 10-15 minutes to say. Like I waited on the phone for a while, and like my boyfriend kept asking like, where are they? And I said, I don't know. Like, you know, it was like, so it was a while. It was enough time to, anything could have happened. I could have been raped. I could have been killed. I could have been suffocated. I could have been anything at that point. And when they came, they were pretty useless.
Yeah. How did they respond when you told them what had just happened?
That they just handed me the bottle of water and they told me to lock my door and they'll be back, which they never did. The police came. Finally, actually, the important part, they wanted to bring me to the hospital because I already suffer from depression, anxiety. So my heart rate was really high and my blood pressure and all that. So just to make sure I'm fine and talk to someone, I agreed. And then so they told me they were going to bring me back to this facility, this room, which I refused.
Wow. I am just appalled to hear that. That is so disgusting. You mentioned the locks, and I know, can you explain a little bit about, were the locks removed or?
The latches at the top, which keeps anybody in the room safe from anyone, workers, employees that have a universal key, was off. You see the holes, they're taken out, as well as in the other room because I asked. So pretty much you could only lock the bottom door, but all the workers on the floor, or like Red Cross workers that were there responsible, there were some young guys, people, you know, it was just security. Anyone could have entered with their universal key. Wow. So I had put the computer chair under, and that's how I ended up falling asleep.
You know, there have been horrific stories about, people in hotels where someone from the hotel or what have you enters in. So that is quite frightening that the locks up there, that upper latch to give you that security, was removed. Now, tell us a little bit about, what's been going through your head these last days since this has happened.
I'm really all over the place. I'm not back to my regular life. I've missed a lot of my schooling. I'm really in shock, I guess. I haven't absorbed it all. there's just a lot of, I guess, attention as well. So it's hard to like cope with everything. There's some comments, people like, some things that are obviously sticking with me. The I don't know. I'm all over the place. I have more anxiety and I feel more depressed than ever. I'm just, I don't know.
Now, who do you think is at fault for what occurred that day or night?
Our government that put these government facilities in place and all these measures into place that were apparently supposed to keep us safe.
And have you had any supports offered to you? I'm sure I hope the police have offered some sort of supports to you, or there's been some organizations that have reached out. Or
yes, of course, there's some for the CVA, CAVAC and places like that, which offer like just legal help if you need to see someone. I'm on a waiting list, speak to someone, things like that. But people have reached out to me like on social media and other places to help out or to contact people, or just really a lot of support from.
Well, I'm happy to hear that some people are there to support you. I know that we at Rebel News have been very vocal about our concerns with people's rights in Canada, being forced to be detained inside of these facilities that are clearly just rushed together like a knee-jerk reaction, and the secrecy behind them and things like that. You mentioned being on a waiting list for legal help, but aside from telling the other story to what is often the mainstream narrative here at Rebel News, we also advocate for Canadians, especially when it comes to freedoms or certain injustices. So how would you like to take us up on the offer to have our amazing supporters at Rebel News come together on your behalf to provide you with a top-notch lawyer to actually look into everything that's what happened to you and help you through this?
I mean, I'm shook. I really appreciate it. I would like to discuss it and probably take up your offer, because I am a student. I have not been working, and I'm helpless in this situation, and I need some help.
Well, we're happy to help you. We even have a website that's already in place. It's called nocovidjails.com. And that's where people can go. And we are going to set you up no matter what with a great lawyer, as long as you'll take us up on that, of course. And anybody who wants to contribute to what's happened to Sarah, to getting to the bottom of what's happened to Sarah and helping her out so she can focus on her studies, can go to nocovidjails.com and donate what you can there to help with this egregious situation. Now, while I was getting ready to start this interview with you, actually a quarantine officer came to the door, and you brought the camera down so that we could see. I didn't pick up the sound, but I did see you there. Now, another thing that came to mind as I was watching is the other story that's come out that's very similar to this. This time it's regarding a quarantine officer who allegedly sexually assaulted someone in her home. So how are you feeling now that the days after this incident, you still have government ordered COVID guards coming to your front door like that?
I mean, I feel like a criminal, like I've done something wrong, which I don't believe I did. It's kind of like a bit of a harassment. It's 3 days in a row they come here. They just question everything and they just make you feel uncomfortable. I don't believe I need to answer more than I'm here, or I was at the hospital, or whatever the situation is. I'm home. You see me. I have my proofs. I feel like invasion. I don't know. My life is just, I'm helpless. I just feel like they have control of everything.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of control of everything, the way that you approached, you had a mask on, you seemed very open to answering the questions. And as time went on, you seemed to get a little frustrated, understandably. Can you explain why?
Well, he kept repeating to me, why are you giving me attitude? And I kept saying, well, I answered your question and you keep questioning the hour, the time that I left, the seconds that I left counting. I said, I don't need to explain really myself that I had a panic attack, that I went out, I was outside of the hospital, calming myself down, smoking my cigarette before I walked into the hospital. And that I didn't end up seeing a doctor because I couldn't stand being at the hospital with having all kinds of babies cry, which were just giving me chest pain. And they did put me in the corona quarantine section, which once again, people could have the virus there, which I already got tested negative. I'm just quarantine. So I just don't understand why I would also be put in there. It was also just, I just got more stressed going there. So I had asked the lady, she saw me, she saw I was in distress. She let me leave. She gave me a paper so my dad can come pick me up because it was past curfew. And yeah, they cut off my mom while she was speaking, telling her that she can speak for herself, which I can, but so can my mom whenever she pleases. She gave birth to me.
Yeah. Well, there's no need to be disrespectful, right? Anyways, I mean, this is already quite an invasion on, privacy, security, and in another way, it brings up some horrible things, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for your bravery, and we're happy to lock arms with you and really help you through this time. If you had something to say to the Trudeau government about their consistent and persistent decision to keep these facilities open, what would you say?
First of all, I think it's absurd that they're keeping them. They don't understand being in my position or that lady's position, because they're protected, of course, because they're the higher power. They have protection. They are not helpless. We are the ones that are helpless. And I believe that these facilities are not safe. And they're like camps. Like, we don't belong there. We're not zoo animals. We're not criminals. And that they're also promoting sexual assault, all kinds of things. And this just there has to be an end to all this. And our rights and our freedom has been taken away from us, which, what's the point of having the Canadian Charter if we can't even, how do you say that? Refer to it, like have it to help us. We're helpless. Nothing can help us at this point. It's me against the government.
Well, it feels like it's us against the government, unfortunately, in a lot of ways. So I think that was well put. And thank you so much again for your bravery, for being on this report. Now, anybody who's watching this and wants to help Sarah just as desperately as we do, please head to nocovidjails.com. Donate whatever you can there so that we can put an end to these.
If you believe that Canadians deserve the right to have answers and also to have free legal counsel if they get detained without breaking any laws, please head to nocovidjails.com. Whatever you donate there goes to the legal team who has been helping this and also helping us get to the bottom of this, because honestly, there should be no secrecy about anything when it comes to keeping people against their will in Canada.